These are the times I wish I didn't live right by the road. Oh my God, can you hear that? Hello everyone, and I hope you're doing well. As you can see from the title and thumbnail, today's video is going to be my recap and usually my thoughts on episode 13 of The King, Eternal Monarch, but I'm also going to be sharing some of my theories at the end as well. I try not to guess and just enjoy the show and have it reveal itself to me, but it's getting too close to the end for me not to try and figure out what's going to happen, especially involving the detective and the king. So I'll be sharing those as well at the end. So let's jump right into the recap. We start off where the last episode left off, with the head court lady asking about the outcome of the Korean War and confirming that what the detective is thinking is true, that she is originally from the Republic of Korea. And apparently it was the king's great-grandfather who brought her back through the obelisk to the Kingdom of Korea after her family was killed. They don't give a reason why or what he was doing in the other universe, but that's how it happened. We then go back to the king and the prime minister, who are talking in his study, and he confirms with her that yes, he did pick the detective to be his queen. And the prime minister, obviously knowing about the parallel universes, but pretending that she doesn't, is just overall not happy about this and asks if that's a good idea since she has a criminal record, or Luna does, that is. While she's sort of threatening him and he's saying stay out of it, this is when thunder and lightning hits, and you see that they're both affected by the lightning scars, which the king notices and confirms that the prime minister knows what she knows, which we talked about that in the last recap. As the prime minister leaves, the king calls the coroner to ask that he meet with her about the recent traitor's death and to see the results firsthand, as well as get him a meeting with someone who can represent KU and be the go-between, since the owner is in prison and he wants to talk about the prime minister and I think deal with that using KU. As the prime minister leaves, she runs into the detective in the hallway, where the detective confirms that it had been the prime minister she had met in the Republic of Korea. The prime minister obviously denying, but also making it pretty obvious that it was her, and that she did more than buy shoes while there. And then right at that moment, more lightning and thunder hit, and the detective sees the prime minister be in pain and see the lightning scars. After the PM leaves, the detective runs to the king's study, where she lets him know that she's just confirmed that the prime minister was the person she met in the Republic of Korea and that she saw the lightning scars. The king is like, yeah, I saw it too, and he also lets the detective know that he's going to go look at the traitor's body that apparently has the lightning scars on it, and he wants to investigate that further and not to wait up for him. When he goes to the coroner, we see that it's the doppelganger of the forensic police officer who is married to the detective's boss. Not sure if there's a connection there, but that was interesting. And as she gives her report on the body, she also tells him about the other bodies she's seen with the same scar and how they were from prisoners who had been convicted for killing their family members. The king thinks this makes sense, since the parents of the doppelgangers obviously would be able to tell that these people that have replaced them are not their original family members, and obviously these people have already killed once. Why not kill again? Meanwhile, we see someone going into Unsup's hospital room and trying to inject something into his IV. However, Unsup and the king are ready, since earlier when the king detective had dropped by to visit and he was doing the security sweep, he actually found bugs under the table in his hospital room. And they set up kind of a sting operation after that. After the attempted assassin is taken away and the king and Unsup are chatting, another bout of lightning and thunder hit, where the king realizes that Unsup isn't affected by it the same as Teol. So he connects that it's only happening to those whose doppelgangers are gone, i.e. dead. Meanwhile, the prime minister is back at work, and when her secretary asks where she went on vacation and why she isn't telling him, she's saying it's safer if he doesn't know. We then see what happened and how she ended up in the Republic of Korea. We see her go to the bookstore where Yi-Yim is waiting for her, and as Yi-Yim explains to her about the parallel universes, she immediately asks if he's blackmailing her and basically threatening to replace her with her doppelganger. Yi-Yim is pretty impressed that she figured it out so quickly without him having to spell it out to her like he has with others, and the Prime Minister tells him that she needs proof and to take her to the parallel universe that is the Republic of Korea. We see the pair of shoes she bought in her office as we come back to the scene in present day with an internal monologue of her saying basically that it's the king and his choices that have led her on the path that she's on. That's me paraphrasing, of course, and giving my own liberties. Back at the palace where it seems to be the next day, the king is informed by his secretary that the detective has gone out with one of the royal guards, who we see is actually Jong-mi, the rookie detective's doppelganger, and goes by the same nickname as well, and seems to be very similar. She apparently had a moment where she was conscious before she woke up at the warehouse tied up, and is wanting to investigate the area that she remembers arriving in and hopes to find Yi-Yim's entrance into the kingdom. The king is told she took Jong-mi since she figured he was busy and got a guard, which she felt he would be happy with. And this is also when the secretary asks what he wants to do about his recent proposal. Should they start planning the wedding or not? The king says to postpone since he hasn't actually gotten a yes yet, and obviously the secretary gives him a look after this. This is when he also asks where the head court lady is, and of course she appears in front of him, and this is when she tells him about her finding a spy and showing him the photo of Kong and his mother, who is the spy, but it's Kong and his mother in the Republic of Korea. The king is told that Kong's mother wants to speak with him, and so he goes to see her. And this is when she tells him that the last photo she was given was a photo of him and Kong together in the Republic of Korea, and also given the poison. And apparently the poison wasn't meant for her, it was meant for the king. She took it instead and pretty much gambled with her life, hoping that if she took the poison and everything went according to plan, that she could meet him and kind of tell him the truth about what happened, and also to ask the king to spare her son since he has nothing to do with this. So it does seem like Yi-Yim has been using Kong to blackmail his mother in the Kingdom of Korea to spy on him, and it seems try and poison the king while there. So I guess this also explains why the head court lady mentioned she needs new chickens, because we see her in the earlier scene giving some chickens some rice and food, and the chicken's dying. So obviously that's how she's been testing the food before giving it to the king. So I don't know what that means. Does that mean that Kong's mother did poison the king, but she also poisoned herself? Or was that her food that the head court lady gave to the chickens? Next, we see that the pregnant woman from the Republic of Korea has replaced her doppelganger in Korea. She's in a very nice hospital room, getting her feet rubbed, and she's internally working to remember all of her family members' names and their information to, replace her doppelganger. And it looks like I guessed right about her doppelganger. I can't remember if I mentioned this in my recap of episode 12, but when the Prime Minister was talking with her at the restaurant, the Prime Minister mentions try and have your baby in the kingdom, I think because she knows that she was going to be replaced soon. And it seems that instead of killing her, she was knocked out and they just put her in her doppelganger's home in the Republic of Korea. So she's surrounded by filth in this small apartment and doesn't know how she's there or why. And it also seems like she's in labor at the same time as well. So they didn't kill her, I think because she was with child. So I guess that's good. We're now taken to the Republic of Korea again and see what Luna is up to. She's outside the detective's house looking in, and the detective's father appears. He sees Luna thinking it's the detective and tells her to come inside and eat, because why are you standing outside all the time, chick? Come on. They chat for a bit, and the detective's dad doesn't seem to suspect anything, since Luna stays pretty quiet during the whole encounter and meal. And after that, she goes into the detective's room and snoops for a bit. We see her knock the tiger plush off the bed, you know, the one she won with the king on their date. And we also see her look up at the ceiling and see the little sticker stars that the detective has up there. And they're in the shape of a Gemini, and she makes kind of a snide remark about it. Meanwhile, Junsi's mother, the king's doppelganger, is in a car in a neighborhood looking out the window, and we find out from a conversation she has with the driver that she used to work in this neighborhood. And as she's looking out, she sees Kong's mother walking down the street. And apparently she knows Kong's mother. With some harsh threats of screaming bloody murder if he doesn't let her out, she gets the driver to unlock the car and let her go talk to Kong's mother. She introduces herself by saying she's Junsi's mother. So I guess their kids knew each other as well, but that's what reminds Kong's mother, oh, I do know you. She asks Kong's mother to go somewhere to eat with her, since it's such a coincidence that they've run into each other like this. And as she gets Kong's mother into the car and they go to drive off, we see Yang is there and apparently has been following Kong's mother and sees Zhong-hee. While the ladies are eating lunch, Zhong-hee finds out how Kong came out of his coma, and when his mother shows the picture of him as an adult, she recognizes that it's the man who was at her son's plot at the crematorium. After seeing this, she gives Kong's mother all the money she has and suddenly leaves. I think hearing how her son miraculously got out of the coma and seeing that it looks like the guy that was visiting her son's grave, that she might suspect that he's connected to Yi Yim somehow. And I don't know if she's worried about Kong's mother being connected to Yi Yim, but she just knows she has to get out of there. As she and the driver get on the elevator, Yang gets on as well, and we see him looking closely at her. I think just wanting to really confirm that she is who he thinks she is. Back in the kingdom of Korea, the detective and Jong-mi's doppelganger are back from their little excursion, and they are running to meet the king, since it seems they were out all day and the detective wasn't answering her phone. So, you know, he was very worried about them, and so they were rushing back to show him that they're okay. This is when she tells the king what she discovered and that she may be on the right track in finding Yi Yim's bamboo forest, since apparently it has to be a bamboo forest. She tells him her plan to have Jung-mi look in the area where she remembers arriving and look for any bamboo forests around there. After that, stake the place out until Yi Yim arrives, and bing bada boom, we catch him. This is when the king tells her about how time stops when you go through the obelisk, and how time has been stopping for over an hour now, which means that any guards stationed outside the bamboo forest are pretty much guaranteed to be killed. Since Yi Yim will come through, they'll be frozen in time for an hour, so he'll have plenty of time to do away with the guards and get away. So that plan is thwarted pretty quickly. The king also shares his theory about why time is stopping, and it's because the flute is in half and only using half its power each time. He thinks if the flute is put back together, that the time issue will be fixed. This is also when he shares his other theory that instead of getting the other piece of the flute from Yi Yim now, that he could possibly go back in time to just stop Yi Yim from getting the flute in the first place. He can't confirm this, of course, but he thinks if he can find the end or the edge of the in-between, that it's possible to wander through time as well as the universes. He also brings up the fact that living things seem to sink in the in-between. He mentions he tosses a coin in the air and it freezes. The detective, not discouraged by this, has actually bought more magic lily seeds to plant in the in-between, and we see her plant them as they walk across to go back to the Republic of Korea. So her, the king, and Unsup, who's bringing back luggage, and sees the coin that the king had thrown up in the air. He flicks the coin, and though it stays in its spot, it does start to spin. I don't know if this is really relevant to the story, but I thought it was cool, so I'm mentioning it. Meanwhile, in the Republic of Korea, we see the detective's father outside handing out flyers, and have an interaction with some teens trying to sneak a smoke. He's trying to recruit them to come take lessons at his Taekwondo studio by implying that if they go, they can get on the police force. And the flyer that he hands them says, you know, many police officers have gone to his school and have been successful. They obviously scoff at this. But that's when the detective arrives. She runs into his arms, telling him how she almost died this time and how he must have been so worried about her. But he's confused by this since she's been home every night and texting him often, which he tells her, so she's just acting really crazy to him right now. This is when she realizes that Luna has been living as her while she's been in the Kingdom of Korea. Meanwhile, Young and Kong are meeting at the chicken restaurant, and Young is there to confirm a couple things with Kong. One, what his full name was when he was living in the Kingdom of Korea, and two, does he like the detective, like more than a friend? As for his feelings for the detective, he doesn't necessarily say yes, but he's obviously upset about Young asking, probably because it's true. This is also when Young tells him that the king and detective's relationship is pretty much doomed to fail. I mean, they're from different universes, and that's like the worst kind of long distance you could ever have. And long distance relationships don't work out all the time. I think that Young is telling Kong this to sort of tell him to go for it in a way, and I think he's also trying to protect the king and his feelings, since he's just seeing their whole relationship as something that could never work out and something that's inevitably gonna hurt the king. And that's who he truly cares about in the end. I think though Kong likes the detective, he cares about her and her happiness more, so he doesn't even go there with Young, and he gets up to leave Young, which to Young confirms that Kong does have feelings for the detective. And speak of the devil, as Kong is leaving the restaurant, he sees the detective in the alleyway petting a stray cat. He confronts her and asks her why she isn't answering his texts or calls, and if she's feeling all right, because she looks a little pale. And she just suddenly runs up to him and kisses him. And then her phone goes off, which she looks at, says it's her dad, and is like, I gotta go. He of course goes after her, and that's when the real detective shows up, telling Kong that she's trying to track her phone because Luna has it and that she's somewhere around here and if he's seen her. He says he has, obviously not mentioning the kiss, and also doesn't necessarily say that it was a second ago, but he does mention that she must have her ID because she put herself on vacation, so he suggests she needs to go to the police station first and get back from vacation. He tells her she should go there first and cancel her vacation, and then just walks away. For a moment, the detective does talk with Luna, and Luna's like, we can't meet up or one of us is gonna die, i.e. you, detective. And then she shuts her phone off. Meanwhile, the king has met up with Young at the restaurant, and after making sure he's okay, he asks if he saw the prime minister here in the Republic of Korea. Young confirms, and then the king assures Young it won't happen again, and we see how he handled the situation. So remember how earlier in the episode he had asked for a KU representative to come and talk with him? Well, it was to handle the prime minister. So he got info from her ex-husband, and apparently he's overprotecting her. KU's representative is also the prime minister's advisor, and he comes delivering a USB with voice recordings that the prime minister had made of all the conversations that she'd had in the palace and everywhere else. And basically, it was incriminating her, and she was committing treason, i.e. going to her ex-husband and asking him to look into the missing footage that had Yi-Yim in it. So she caught, and the king leaks this to the news. So the prime minister basically gets fired from her job, is told to leave the office. When she leaves, she expects the advisor to come with her, but nay, he's there for the prime minister. She's kind of done this to herself in his mind. So he's staying, she's leaving. She now knows that he's the one that got the files. And the only person that leaves with her is her secretary. she's at least got one ally that's coming with her. So after Yang gets told this information, he then wonders how the king found him at this restaurant and asks if he had bugged Unsup's phone. And the king's like, no, Unsup downloaded the app for me. Because the king doesn't download apps or bug phones himself. What, are you crazy? The king then asks if Unsup's siblings found out that he wasn't Unsup, and Yang immediately says no, trying to cover his tracks and knowing that this isn't the case. And we then see Nari confirming her suspicions with Unsup's little sister that something is off about Unsup. Her sister's saying it's not him, Nari just thinking something's off. But either way, it doesn't matter because right at that moment, Unsup comes back, his sister immediately knows, and Nari notices the difference. She can't fully understand what it is or what's going on, but she can tell that Unsup is back. Unsup is obviously happy to be back and gives Nari a hug, saying how much he missed her. And of course, this is still confusing to her since, you know, she just saw him yesterday. But whatever, group hug, everybody. Meanwhile, the detective is still trying to track down her phone that Luna has, and she ends up going to the police station to have them locate it. But it seems that just a moment ago, Luna canceled it, so she's just a step ahead of the detective. So after this, they show where Luna is, which is her, again, living in a car somewhere and in a lot of pain from her terminal illness. We see in the car roof that she has the same star stickers in the shape of a Gemini, just like the detective's room. Not sure what this means. I think maybe they're more alike than she cares to admit, and this is their way of showing that. But either way, she's obviously not doing well and is kind of back where she started. The next day, we see the king meet up with Unsup and give him a car as a thank you for his help and taking a bullet for him. And he then goes to the detective's home and surprises her there. She's leaving for work, not knowing he's there until she hears her father talking to someone, and there he is being served breakfast by her father, who they obviously know each other because, you know, the king has visited her dad. We just, again, have never seen them together in the same room before, so this is the first time. This is also when the detective tells her father that Yigon is actually her boyfriend, and that's how they come out to him. After this, they leave her home together, and before they part ways, the detective gives the king a gift. She bought him some street clothes that will hopefully help him blend in a little more than his nice clothes that he keeps wearing. He pulls out the black jacket, and as he looks at it, he says it looks familiar. The detective is like, yeah, that's a good thing since these are plain clothes and you're meant to blend in with them. Everybody has this jacket, so sounds like it's already working. The detective then goes to the police station, and since they can't find Luna, she asks Kong to help her find the Prime Minister's doppelganger. Since obviously the Prime Minister has been to the Republic of Korea, that means that something probably happened to her doppelganger, so they're gonna go find her and hopefully connect the dots there. As they go to her apartment, they find out that she's been gone for a few days and just declared missing. The detective also finds out that the prince on the burner phone that Kong had been given finally got some results, and it belongs to someone who's been arrested at the hospital the detective had visited while investigating Yi Yim's doppelganger's death. And obviously the picture on the phone they show is Yi Yim's right-hand man, so they head to that same hospital to investigate again. While there, Kong goes into an unmarked hospital room, and the detective finds the body of the Prime Minister's doppelganger, confirming that the hospital is connected to everything going on and Yi Yim. While this is going on, some real shit goes down with the king. The king has changed into the clothes the detective has bought him, which happened to be all black with a black ball cap, and Yang has just left to get soju because he wants to have a drink with the king. I think he is mustering up the courage to tell the king that he'd seen his mother's doppelganger, but before he returns, the detective shows up with beer and chicken. At first, I was like, oh, that's sweet of her, but then my brain was like, wait, didn't we just see her at the hospital? It's not the detective, it's Luna. He actually thinks it's the detective for a little bit, but after a while, and while she's talking, he realizes that it's not her, based on some traits about her. This is when he takes the detective's badge that Luna has, and as he takes it and sees himself in the mirror holding the badge in all black clothing, he realizes something. He realizes that the person that saved him when he was a child was him. And guess what? Yi-Yim, who's in the kingdom of Korea at this time, is looking at a large poster size of the king, and at the same time has figured out that it was the king as an adult in the past saving himself. We see the king get a little wobbly in the legs, and at first you think it's because he's connecting the dots and in shock by it. But actually, it's because Luna has slipped something into his drink. My guess is poison, and that's how the episode ends, with the king falling to the ground, possibly dying. So I actually did see a few of these surprises coming, especially in regards to the hospital. And overall, I feel like this episode was a bit of a slow burner, but we did get some more answers to some really big questions that we've all been asking, and I guess figured out Luna's true mission, which was to kill the king. The minute the king was dressed all in black, I knew immediately where that was going, and I honestly was a little surprised that it took him holding the detective's badge for the king to connect the dots. Especially when he had just been talking about how he thought time travel through the obelisk might be possible. I mean, at least they didn't make him put the hat and hood on to figure it out, because that would have just been so stupid if he had to put a mask on and look at himself in the mirror and be like, oh my gosh, it was me. I also think that in the hospital room Kong just went in this episode, I think he's going to find his doppelganger there in a coma. Because if you've noticed, when the lightning and thunder happens, we never see him affected by it. And obviously, the detective hasn't been affected by it, Unsub hasn't been affected by it, and what's the connection there? Their doppelgangers are alive. Now, Kong replaced his doppelganger as a child, and his doppelganger was in a coma. I'm kind of thinking that Yi-Yim, one, put doppelganger Kong in a coma, and two, has had the doppelganger in the hospital he's been running in a coma there. It's his doppelganger in that unmarked room, and that's gonna really blow his mind. And my mind is gonna be blown if that's right. The other reason I suspect this is, did you see the way the hospital manager was looking at him when he went to go take her badge? Suspicious. I also keep thinking back on that scene of future Egon visiting the detective with the flowers, and I have two theories there. That either the detective dies, or worse, the king closes the obelisk in the future and for some reason can only visit her in the past because, you know, of the time loop stuff. So maybe in the future, he's actually not able to visit the detective, but he is still able to use the flute and go back in time and to the alternate universe. He just can't go to present day detective. So he goes to visit her kind of one last time to see her, and maybe future Egon's gonna visit her again. But that would also explain why he is able to go back in time and visit himself. So that's my theory with what happens. I kind of hope I'm wrong, but I also feel like I might be right on that one. What do you guys think about that? And I think I'm gonna end it there. Make sure to subscribe for the latest recap. I'm also starting to recap Mystic Pop-Up Bar if you're interested in that. Check out those. I think I've done 1, 2, 3, and 4. I think those are the 4 that are out. And make sure to leave your theories, thoughts in the comments below. Until then, thanks for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye. While the I think I'm